Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor, too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days. Or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store, and Osceola subscribers get 20% off in store and online with their digital membership cards. Alumni Hall. It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast, presented by Alumni Hall, where you will find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family. You can visit Alumni Hall at alumnihall.com or at their Tallahassee store location at 1817 Thomasville Road. My name is Pat Burnham. I'm a football writer for the Osceola and host of Seminole Sidelines. I am joined today by Osceola publisher Jerry Cutts, managing editor Bob Ferrante, former FSU offensive lineman and football analyst Mark Salva, and Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein to discuss FSU's last play 33-30 win over Syracuse on Saturday in Doak Campbell Stadium. I do want to take this opportunity to remind Osceola subscribers that you can log on to the Osceola and click on the Alumni Hall ad to sign up for your discount card that gets you 20% off online purchases, and also sign up for your membership card, which gets you 20% off on in-store purchases. All right, guys, the last time we were this excited to tape a podcast, it was after a close loss against Notre Dame. And finally, FSU got their first win on Saturday as we were all there for it. And as I told Bob before the game started, there would be nothing boring about the Syracuse-Florida State game. There definitely was not anything boring. But the most important thing is, and as everyone has said in their articles and on Facebook and Twitter, it wasn't necessarily a pretty game, but when you're 0-4, a win is a win is a win. But moved to 1-4 on the year. Played a fairly evenly matched Syracuse team. Both teams, the strength of their team was their rush defense. The strength of both teams was their rush offense, and that's the way it played out. Both teams had more success on the running the ball than they did passing the ball. But want to get Bob. First of all, your biggest takeaway from the win.
I think this is really big picture, but it's honest. I think Mike Norvell can look at the offense, defense, and special teams and say each segment had a big hand in the victory. And at the same time, he can also look at each segment and say, guys, we still have a lot of work to do. We can see a lot of things as we look back on tape at what didn't go well, and frankly, what allowed Syracuse to be in that game late. And that game didn't need to be that close. But overall, positives through losses amounted to a big positive, which was a win.
Mark, what about you? What was your big takeaway from that game?
Pat, as I sat there and watched that field go in, I just thought to myself, it's amazing how little the margins are we have for success or failure. We could have easily gone into that game and been 3-1, and yet we were 0-4, and we could have easily have won that game, as lost that game. And the margins are really, really small. So, as I sat there and looked at it, what was the difference between winning and losing? Obviously executing there at the end and never giving up, fighting through for the whole 4 quarters. But, when you think back and look to it, the things that lost us the games, the penalties, the stupid penalties, the targeting fouls, the turnovers, we've really in the last couple of weeks cut down on a lot of that stuff. I think, I believe we only had like 3 penalties. We had the 2 turnovers that I can think of, with the muff punt and the interception, but they were timely. But, in the games that we lost, those things were like in really bad spots and really bad positions. And, it's just that our margins are so small. There's room for improvement all over the team, all over this. Every segment can sit there and say that. But it's good to pull it through, because learning to win is just as important as learning how to lose, I guess. But pulling it through, hopefully, those lessons can be learned, and, maybe we can start momentum going the other way.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think one of the things that's become evident as we've getting into now what is the going into the 6th week of the season, this staff and this team is going to have to manufacture wins. You may not see the same offense from one week to the next. We know that. We'll get into that with the quarterbacks in a little bit. But how they manufactured offense against Syracuse was totally different than how they manufactured offense against Louisville. Both obviously games that ended up being close. And then finally, we saw our first evidence, really, I think, maybe some in the Notre Dame game, but really complimentary football and a sign of positive things with the way they handled their short field opportunities, which I think was the biggest key to the game. Florida State produced 13 points on their short field opportunities. And, of course, Syracuse produced only 10 on their 3 short field opportunities. When you go back and look at it, that was a difference in the game. And, I used the term good football team loosely, but that's what good teams do. And maybe this was for lack of a better term, a sign of maturity by this team that they were able to do that. And I think it does give them something to build off of moving forward. But certainly the ability for the defense to come up with that 4th and 1 and hold Syracuse to a field goal on one of those 3 short field opportunities. At the end of the day, and listen, it's a close game. Every play was important, but those short field opportunities were probably the thing that stood out to me the most. That they did a good enough job in that game to win the game. And like both of you said, and I think anybody that watched the game knows that there's plenty to learn from. Pass defense was better than it should have been. Syracuse is not a very good passing football team. But certainly they held the running back to about 100 yards, but he didn't do any real damage. They held him from catching a pass. He was their second leading receiver, but they gave up a lot of run yards to the quarterback. So they got to get that corrected. But, hey, a win is a win is a win. And I think we were all happy going home on Saturday night and happy for the staff and the kids. They've put in just as much work as anybody else in college football, and sometimes it's good to get that payoff, which leads me to my next question. Obviously, the payoff is they got to win going into North Carolina in Chapel Hill on Saturday afternoon at 3:30, and then, of course, come back home to play, have an off week, then come back home to play UMass, then head to Clemson in about 3 weeks. So what does this win mean for FSU with UNC and Clemson on the road in their next 2 ACC games, Mark?
Well, I think this win kind of validates the work they've put in and the work they continue to put in. You hear Mike talk about it every week, that this team continues to work, continues to fight, and all he ever knows to do in these adverse situations is to keep on working. And, that's true, and that's well and good. But if you don't get a result eventually, that determination can begin to wane. And, what this win does is it buys them more time. It relieves some of the pressures, like a pressure valve releasing a little bit. It's the noise is going to quiet down a little bit. The kids can calm down a little bit and now really put the work in to get better. The lessons that have been learned from, correcting mistakes and then seeing the result is they can build on that. Is cliche and as coachy as that sounds, that there's a lot of truth to a lot of that. Again, winning's a habit, so is losing. And so proud of those guys for continuing to fight, continuing to work, because it's evident they don't quit. I mean, look, not in one of these games have we come on here and said they gave up. They fought through every one. So to get a result just kind of validates all of that.
Bob, what about you? What's your takeaway from this game about what it means FSU moving forward?
Similar to Mark, it's the affirmation of the hard work, but also I think it strengthens the players and the leaders are, I think, emboldened by what they've been able to achieve now. It's not just positives, it's a win. And we were worried about this team a couple of weeks ago. Were they potentially going to check out? Would leaders maybe back off the gas a little bit? And now you've got a situation where you're going to a huge game up in North Carolina. A guy like Sam Howell, who's got Saturday, October 9th circled on that calendar or marked on his iPhone for a full year, honestly, because he wants to get revenge. And what's one of Florida State's strength is it's that leadership and that production out of the defensive front. So these guys have the energy and I think the desire to go after it and try to get some heat on Howell and make this one a game when Vegas and everybody around the country doesn't really think it's going to be a game. So if you're looking for silver linings, I think it's that in part. And also still, you've got to figure out what your offensive identity is around Jordan Travis and if and how you want to run to try to control some time of possession so that Howell doesn't kick your butt as far as just throwing it all over the field.
Yeah, and certainly they got a challenge coming up on Saturday, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, one of the things, I think now moving forward, I think my biggest takeaway is I think, we've seen this team, whether it played really bad or really good, and we haven't seen a lot of really good. We've seen some good, but I think we're past the point, and we talked about it Willie's last year. We talked about it Mike's first year as head coach. We just wanted to see the team compete, right? They were uncompetitive in games. And I'm talking about the willingness to compete and fight, not to be competitive on the scoreboard. I'm talking about the willingness to compete. And I think now, what are we, 14 games into Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State? I do believe that we are past the point of, do we expect this team to compete and fight? I think they will. Now, they may be outmatched moving forward by a North Carolina or by a Florida or even by Clemson, who I'm still not totally sold on. But I do think we've moved beyond it. I think they've taken the next step. And we've seen, as bad as it was against Jacksonville State and as bad as it was against Wake Forest, they competed. Now, could they have played much better? Certainly. I think they could have played much better against Syracuse, as you said. But I do think that there were some concerns that if they kept on losing and things got tough, that this might turn into another case of, really just not showing intensity through the entire game. And I think that hopefully we've moved past that. We've seen this team compete against Notre Dame. We saw them compete against Jacksonville State in losses. They fought back to lose the Louisville close, and they did what they had to do against Syracuse to win the ball game. And, of course, the only game they've really been beaten in is by Wake Forest. And they did fight in that game, but I think that we're all in agreement now, at least I think so. I think Wake Forest is the best football team, maybe not most talented football team they've played. You might give that to Notre Dame, and they should be more talented than Wake Forest. But I think the best football team is the team that beat them the worst. So hopefully we're through talking about effort and willingness to fight. And now we're talking about taking the next step, which is compete on the scoreboard, which they can do with some of the opponents they have left. Moving on to our next point, of course, this probably has as much to do about availability and health on a weekly basis as it does anything else. But we're back to the revolving door at quarterback. Jordan Travis started the game. It was a much different offense than it was up against Mackenzie Milton, where they had the most productive game passing the ball. The offense looked a whole lot different with Mackenzie, with Jordan leading the way. They were successful. And, of course, what we saw is what we all knew, that he is a dynamic playmaker and the best playmaker Florida State has with the ball in his hands, although not necessarily when he's throwing the ball. But at some point, they've got to settle this quarterback thing out, I think. If Travis is healthy moving forward each and every week, is he the starter coming out of this game?
Here's the deal. If Travis is going to be effective, he's got to learn to throw the football effectively, because his running is outstanding, obviously. But if there's no threat to throw the football, that's going to get shut down, especially with some of these better teams. And so he has got to be more efficient throwing the football. And, watching him this Saturday, there were times where there were throws there when he had a clean pocket and he wouldn't pull the trigger. He's kind of hesitant to me to cut it loose sometimes. They tried to help him a little bit. I mean, I know the game plan was to throw a lot of the screens and throw a lot of the, number 3 in the flat. And, those were all good things because of the the front and the coverage they were giving us. But there are other things that are available that he just won't throw. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's he doesn't see it. I don't know if he's just not comfortable with it. But if he is going to be our quarterback, he has got to throw the football intermediate down the field, not just takeoffs, not just posts, not just screens. He's got to be a threat, or else all this running that he does is going to dry up. Because if there's no threat to throw the ball, guess what? They're going to key on it, and he's going to get hammered, and he's going to get hurt again.
Yeah,
he doesn't have to be Kyler Murray, but he's got to be a little better than he is for sure.
Well, he was 22 of 32 for 131 yards, and listen, this was not a great defense they played against, particularly against the pass. About my estimation, I have not gone back and counted everyone, but about 30% of his passes were glorified runs. They were passes to the flat, now screens, all of that. He was dynamic. And listen, just say, I preface this, but every time we've talked about this quarterback battle, both kids Florida State has playing quarterback or Warriors, but they both have deficiencies in their game. Is FSU too one-dimensional with Jordan Travis at quarterback, and can it compete against the North Carolinas, the Clemsons, NC States, and Miamis as a one-trick pony?
No. If you're that one-dimensional, if we don't find a way to quote the great Hank Stram, to matriculate the ball down the field, it's going to be tough sledding.
Now, what did you guys think? Again, I said this when we first started this podcast. The offense looked completely different this week compared to the Louisville game. Can this offense find consistency playing with the rotate? I mean, basically two different personalities on offense depending on who's in the game.
I think the challenges are they're preparing two game plans for two quarterbacks each week and hoping that one guy is healthy and they make a decision. Tom Block said the other day that Jordan found out he was going to start on Friday. And I think they're going with maybe the healthiest guy.
Yep.
This was a game plan very much tailored for Jordan and tailored to beat Syracuse, and give the coaches credit for maybe maximizing the opportunity that was there for Jordan. But a perimeter game with some, basically pseudo runs, it does work against Syracuse. It doesn't work against a lot of other teams in the conference. We'd have to give the coaches credit for what they did, but this isn't a long-term solution, what we saw on Saturday, by any means.
Oh, yeah, I give them full credit for – I mean, like I said, I think they had to manufacture that win with the way they game planned it. I think it was what they did with Jordan. And finally, we had this last year when they were doing the rotating quarterbacks. We kept on hearing the offense is the same. The offense is the same when we all knew that wasn't true. And finally, we got to see what they could do with Jordan in a Jordan Travis friendly system, which – like I said, he's the most dynamic guy they have on the team with the ball in his hands. And whether he's at quarterback or lining up somewhere else, they've got to figure out a way to get him the ball 15 times a game. But Jerry, what do you think? Get your take on the quarterbacks? Again, this is a lot predicated on who's healthy. How do you see the quarterback situation playing out as we move forward?
Yeah, well, so that's the point, I think, is who's healthy. And I don't think the coaches are doing this by design, as you all have said. And I think that's really important to emphasize is they're victims of this, the coaching staff is, in that from day to day, you don't know who's going to be healthy. And so I think they're having to prepare two different game plans based upon the health of the quarterback. And that cannot be easy on anybody else on that offense.
No doubt. It's
you're asking offensive linemen and receivers to remember, Mark, and correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe the blocking schemes are a little similar, but I would think that you're almost you're increasing the size of the playbook that you're trying to prepare for Saturday.
Yes, you are. I agree.
Yeah. The timing of the passing game, obviously, with the receivers and the quarterback, obviously is going to struggle in the situation like we got. And so I'll couch my previous comments, understanding that that's the situation. But my point is that if Jordan Trout is running the ball and when he drops back to throw it is the basis of our offense, that's not gonna last very long. It worked for Syracuse because they played a lot of man coverage, and they play a lot of zero, and he got out there in one block and he was gone. But that's not going to be everybody.
And I do want to circle back to Jerry and Fish on what we talked about before we got to the quarterbacks. Just briefly, what was your biggest takeaway coming out of the game, Jerry? What did you see that most impressed you or made the biggest impression on you, positive or negative?
About the quarterbacks, or
no, just about the team in general, about the game in general.
They're resilient. I mean, they kept fighting. They make plays that, like, you got a 10-point lead and you think, okay, the defense goes out there and gets a stop, 3 plays, punt. We should get the ball back. Florida State should at the 35, and you have a chance to end this game midway through the third quarter, and you get a fumbled punt, and that could be demoralizing. But they just keep coming back after plays that could be demoralizing. I think in years past they quit. Years past they don't come back. But this team, even in losses, has battled, and I think that's the identity of this team at this point.
Yeah, your answer was very similar to mine. I think that my takeaway, just so you know, because obviously you jumped on just a little bit late, or we got started a little bit early. The one thing I said was that I think in game 14 we have now moved past the point under Mike Norvell that we have to question whether this team is going to compete or not. Now it's about now that the next step is to compete on the scoreboard, right? But we know this team's going to fight and claw regardless of what the score is. We didn't see them quit against – I'm not going to belabor the point. But we've seen them fight in every game regardless of how they played, which it has not been good all the time. So I think I agree with you. I think we're past the point of wondering where this team's going to lay down. I don't think it's going to lay down no matter how good it plays or how bad it plays. Fish, what was your main takeaway from the game?
Just the fact that they came out with a win and like you said, we're resilient. They don't give up when bad things happen. That's what good teams should do, is when things go poorly in a game, that they're able to still respond and play at a higher level. Coming out of there with a win was the most important thing. They needed something positive. Not whether they won 30-27 or 30-29 or won by 20 or 30, they just needed a win. Yep. And I think that that helps them realize that the hard work they've put in, that it finally came to a positive result. So I just think that's the most important thing on that aspect, that they were able to fight through it. And you know what, they had a lead and gave it up and still were able to win a game. And I don't know if that would have happened last year with this same team, that if they had, had a 10-point lead and then kind of gave it up and had to keep fighting to win. I don't know if they may have just folded last year and they didn't this year. So that's huge.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. So, listen, it's fun to see that, there's in all aspects of life, there's going to be days where you're going to get your fanny handed to you one way or the other and you can't give up. And I think this is one of those things these kids are learning under Mike Norvell. And I think he and his staff deserve to be commended for keeping these kids going under some trying circumstances. It's not fun when you got everybody beating down on you. Moving forward, I do want to get Fish and Jerry's take on this. You got 2 of your next 3 games or conference games on the road. How can this positively benefit this team moving forward, the win against Syracuse?
I just think winning helps a lot, man. It's just this is a team that, a few things went their way early in the year where they had a chance against Notre Dame to possibly pull off an upset. They should have won the Jacksonville State game. At the end of the Louisville game, they came back. So having that win helps them moving forward. But I also think, they have to look at the scoreboard and see, the rest of the ACC is not that good this year, that they could beat these teams. They're not it's not that Florida State's a great team this year, but if they play hard, and look, last year they weren't supposed to beat North Carolina. They got a few breaks early in the game. They're going to have to create something. I think they're going to have to go after a punt, try to block a punt, try to get an interception to win this game or stay really competitive in the game. But if that the main thing is just get to the second half and give yourself a chance to win. Don't let the game get out of hand in the first half. And if they do that, you can't ask for much more if they get to the second half and have a shot to win.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that this is kind of a wide open. You don't ever know where it's going to get from one week to the next in college football, and that is certainly true in the ACC this year. As we've seen a lot of tight games, very few blowouts, and when you did, you're surprised at who blew. Georgia Tech blows North Carolina out. Then Georgia Tech turns around and gets their doors blown in by Pitt the very next week. So it's anything can happen in college football. But I do want to switch it over to the defense. Obviously they had a lot of trouble against Louisville getting off the field, particularly in the first half against Syracuse, who I don't think anybody's going to confuse the Syracuse offense with Louisville. But they only had 2 drives of 7 plays or more. Syracuse did. They did run the ball with some success, but the guy that could not beat you did not beat you, and that was the running back. They held him to 102 yards of rushing. He was their second leading receiver in receptions and their first leading receiver in yardage gain. They shut him completely out, shut the screen game completely down, which is something that had been a strong point for this team. For Syracuse coming into this ball game, FSU came in giving up 14 and a half plays of 10 yards or more, which was way, way back in the rankings of defense, but only gave up 12 against Syracuse. Did we see improvement from this defense? Because in a game where it's 3 points, if you have 2 more big plays gotten by Syracuse, the outcome may be different. So, Jerry, obviously you love the defensive side of the ball, and I know you were watching it with a guy who loves defense too. So, tell us what your thoughts were on the defense coming out of that ball game.
Well, it seems to me they're still giving up too many big plays, and they're not containing the quarterback. He got outside a bunch of times. Sometimes because of a missed tackle or because of a poor containment. But oftentimes I noticed that we didn't have the speed to get out there to contain him. When our linebackers were responsible for containment, he was quicker than they were. And our angles weren't great. So we haven't contained the ball as well as I think we need to. And I'll let people who know more about it than I explain why. But, I think, Pat, to your point, that base running defense has looked good to me. And in this week, it was without some of your best defensive linemen. We were without. I mean, a starter and a second starter played not at 100%, and FSU had to get that done this week with a true freshman in Josh Farmer, with some other players who really haven't played that much this year. Yeah, so that was a good effort.
Yeah,
what's that?
I was just going to say, just so everyone knows what Jerry's talking about, it was Dennis Briggs, who'd been the starter at the 3 technique, missed the game against Syracuse on Saturday. Then it was announced today. This is Monday at the time of this taping of the podcast. Dennis Briggs was announced that he will miss the rest of the season. If you happen to see the play, Mark and I are both offensive linemen. I'm sure we used to cut guys, but I don't think either one of us took a cheap shot like Dennis Briggs got. lost the season, and they had done the same thing a week before. I can't remember who they played, but I'm talking about Louisville. They did the same thing against UCF. But anyway, Dennis Briggs is gone for the year. I don't believe Jarrett Jackson played. If I'm Bob, am I wrong about that? Wasn't he limited on Saturday?
Malcolm Ray didn't play, but they expect him to play against Carolina. Yeah.
So you had two of your better players not on the field. Malcolm had a good game against Louisville when he was pressing the action. Mark, your thoughts on the defense?
Well, I tell you what, stopping them on fourth down the goal line was awesome. That was a big, big play for obvious reasons. But, it's funny. We don't contain the quarterback. And there was a time in that game when they came back that they threw, 3 or 4 of those deep crosses where number 2 lined up in the slot would cross the field on the defense, and we don't cover it. It's, to me, when you're teaching defense or really offense too, for that matter, you teach in concepts, and when they start hitting you on plays like this, understanding why that happens and fixing it is something that older, more experienced players are able to do much quicker than what we seem to be able to do. When a team hits on something on us, it seems to last for a quarter and a half or so before the kids get a handle on it. I'm sure the coaches see it, and they're probably hammering them on the sideline, but they still fall for the same little, dippy-doo traps and, vertical releases and walling off and not reacting well enough on these boots and these crosses that we're just getting hammered on. And I think that goes back to the fact that we're just such a young football team. And, we play assignments, but maybe not quite there yet as to why we play the assignments we play. So when these situations happen, we can react better and we can adjust ourselves even on the field. But we're not there yet because we're such a young football team, an experienced football team. And it shows up a lot on defense, I think.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, can I pursue that with you just a little bit? As you get older, you gain more experience. How would that help you in that situation?
Well, like I said, you learn the concept of why you're doing what you're doing. So if I'm a linebacker dropping into coverage, right? When I was a young player, you're like, okay, coach tells me in this coverage, I dropped this hash mark. And then I look, I kind of look for number 2 receiver and do that. But the reason, how does that fit in to what the safety does, to what the 2 guys next to me do, to what the corner's doing, to when the formation changes, or when this guy, how does it all fit in together? And you learn the concept of why you're doing what you're doing. And so if they hit on something, okay, I got to make up for it here. I can anticipate this. If I see this formation or I see this release by this guy, I can anticipate this. And that comes with experience. As an offensive lineman, I never taught plays. I taught concepts. I taught, so no matter what they threw up there or no matter what the blitz was, they could think for themselves, and that comes with experience. That comes with understanding. We talked about it on Happy Hour when Clay Shiver came on Happy Hour, and he was talking about how we used to teach him how to read coverages. Why did we teach him to do that? So he knew how to react, how the front was going to react, and he can anticipate things and make correct calls. And that comes again, what comes with experience, it comes with reps, and it comes with good teaching, all that together. And when I see our defense give up big plays repeatedly, the same kind of things, that's the first thing that comes in my mind. They don't understand what they're doing or why they're doing it.
Hey, Fish, what's your thoughts on the defense?
Just a mistake. The big plays, if they could just limit that, especially against a team like North Carolina, they're going to go deep down the field and test the secondary of Florida State. They like to stretch the field. So just keep things in front of you. I think if you could keep these teams to have to go 10, 12 play drives, that there's more likely a chance of something bad happening. So if they can stretch these drives out, even it's not the yards they give up, it's the big plays. And those things are killers for a team. It's demoralizing, especially against a team like North Carolina that likes to go for the big play. They're going to try to blow you out. And if they can limit that, keep everything in front of them, they're going to give up points. It's just keep them from making the big play, try to make mistakes. And I think the defense can do that. We just have to see them do it. So
Yeah.
So, Pat, that's something that Adam Fuller addressed today in the press conference. He was saying the problem with the big plays isn't just that they're a big play, but they're going for touchdowns. And we've got to find a way to, even if there is a big play, get them on the ground and make them snap the ball again. And so that's the thing that's been infuriating, is that a lot of these have gone for touchdowns.
Well, they're game-changing plays, right? I mean, you go back to I think one of the touchdown drives, there was, except I think it was a pass for 24 yards to start the drive, then a 26-yard touchdown pass to end the drive. And listen, they've got to figure – the only kid that they've played quarterback against the last 2 years, year and a half, who has not had a career game against them is the guy they're going to play against this week. Everybody else now, I did not expect Garrett Schrader to have a career game running the ball, but that's exactly what happened. They've got to figure that out somehow, some way. They allow too much success by the quarterback, either in pass efficiency or running the ball. Listen, I don't know how you don't. I mean, that guy's a big kid. But anyway, you're right. They've got to get the big. They got to get the big plays set up.
It's karma. He shouldn't have freaking decommitted on National Signing Day, so he doesn't deserve any good days against Florida State.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I'm going to move into my next segment, which, the old UPS commercial was, "What can Brown do for you?" And so FSU plays North Carolina on Saturday. And I think the motto for this game is, what can Matt Brown do for FSU? Because he is 0 for FSU in his career, and he's going on as a 16-point favorite. And I don't think North Carolina is as good a team as it was last year. I don't think Florida State's as bad a football team as it was last year. So we are a 16-point favorite on the road. And listen, that's kind of I don't know what kind of crowd they'll have there, but it's never a really impressive crowd. I lived in North Carolina for almost 9 years, and I went to several of their games. What do we expect from Florida State as it goes into Chapel Hill? And Mark, I'm going to ask you, because you've been in football a long time. There are some matchups that are just difficult for either player, two different programs, or a coach has a particular issue with a particular team. Is there anything to this, or is it just kind of random luck that Mack Brown cannot beat Florida State, even with a team last year that was head and shoulders above what FSU put on the field? What do you expect out of Florida State going to North Carolina?
Well, I expect that they'll fight. It's funny, I guess Mac is an FSU graduate. So maybe there's something subliminally during the week that the way he prepares his team that won't allow him to beat his alma mater. So I'll go with that and say we're going to win the game.
Well, I think if Florida State beats him this year, we ought to name a road after him on campus somewhere. That's what I think.
Mark, Mac was Billy Sexton's roommate in college. So there you go.
Yeah. I knew that he was, and he's from up here in Cookeville, Tennessee too. So yeah, there's all kinds of good karma as in terms of Mack Brown and us winning this game. So,
Fish, what about you? What are you anticipating on Saturday?
I don't know what this is. Like, I wish I had an answer, because the team, they have the potential. I mean, they showed last year against North Carolina that they could beat this team. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think this North Carolina team's as good. Their receivers aren't as good. They don't have the same backfield. Defensively, I don't think they're as good. But it's on the road. And Florida State has not played as well on the road as they played at home. And you just got to hope they can take, that performance to the road and play at a higher level. You can't make those mistakes, the turnovers, the muff punts. You could get away with that at home and still win a game, but you go muffing punts and fumbling and turning the ball over on the road, you could get blown out real quick. So they got to win the turnover battle. They got to play smart football and limit the big plays. And outside of that, I mean, I could name about 20 other things, but they just got to just play some sound, good football.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Bob, what are your expectations going into Chapel Hill?
It's weird. Mike Norvell doesn't have a road win yet, and this is game 15 of his career at Florida State. I think you have to hope maybe that a little bit of the North Carolina team that lost 45-22 to Georgia Tech shows up, they have to make some mistakes, and Florida State has to play pretty clean. Fundamentally, my belief since August has been this team has to run, has to play good defense, can't be a liability on special teams, has to just figure out a way to keep games close and pull out a win late. I think they do have a realistic shot. There's a formula, a roadmap to a win, but you really can't. Your margin for error, going back to Mark's point, we talked about margin for error for a while. It's pretty thin. It's pretty thin when you're playing a really good team like Carolina.
Well, I think it's a heck of a challenge they got on the road. It is a young team, but I stand by. I don't think that North Carolina is as good as they were last year. I don't think we're as bad, or Florida State's bad as it was last year. I think it will be closer than the experts think. And I think if Mackenzie Milton has 200 yards passing and Jordan Travis has 100 total yards offense, Florida State wins the ball game. They're going to have to utilize both of them.
That's it. I'm mortgaging the house.
That's right. Hey, listen, I'm sorry, my picks were off this week. I didn't do near as good this week in my ACC predictions as I did last week, which I want to move to my next point now. We're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to, like, y'all know, Takeaway Tuesday. It's kind of what you think coming out of a college football weekend. That's what my takeaway. I may not think anything near what I think on tomorrow than I think next Tuesday. But right now, Wake Forest is sitting at 3-0. NC State's at 1-0. Clemson at 2-1. Louisville at 1-1 on the Atlantic side. And then you've got a Pitt at 1-0, Virginia Tech 1-0, UNC at 2-2, UVA at 1-2, Georgia Tech at 1-2. I guess you could say Duke and Miami got a shot. But if you had to guess right now or predict who is going to play in the ACC championship game, who would it be for you, Bob?
Wake Forest. Wake Forest going all the way, taking the Atlantic Division title.
And who you got them playing against?
The Coastal is chaos as always. I have absolutely no clue at this point.
All right. Jerry, who you got in ACC championship game as of week 5 of the college football season?
Wake, I'm going to just duplicate Bob's remarks. No idea on the other side.
Okay. Sully?
Boston College and Georgia Tech.
Look at you. That is way out there. All right. I like it. Walking out of the ramp.
I thought BC looked good the other night.
They did.
Yeah, they're good.
They should have won that game. I think they'll beat Wake.
Jeff Hafley's a heck of a coach, and he's going to start making – there's going to be some schools taking a look at him and maybe even the pros. So,
yeah. So who you got, Fish? Who you got in the championship game?
I got Wake Forest and Pittsburgh. I just – I know Pitt had a bad loss against the Western Michigan, but they bounced back. I think that coach has been there a few years now. He's got his guys. I think they got one of the better quarterbacks on that side. You need a quarterback to win. Pickett's very good. You know they're going to be sound on defense with that head coach and the D-line coach they have there. So Pittsburgh's my team to come out of the Coastal. So it's going to be Pitt and Wake Forest. And at the end of the day, it wouldn't shock me to see Pitt beat Wake Forest. I think Wake's a very good team, but by the end of this season, I think they'll be beat up, and the lack of depth on that team is going to end up hurting them. So.
All right. Well, let's move on to and I agree with you. I got Wake and Pitt. They're my two favorite teams right now. That could all blow up in my face this weekend, but that's who I'm going with right now. All right. Now, listen, this is all tongue-in-cheek, so I hope nobody gets upset when I bring up the question or when they listen to the podcast. But if you had to wake up tomorrow, who would you rather be, Manny Diaz or Jimbo Fisher? If you had to wake up tomorrow, who would you rather be, Manny Diaz or Jimbo Fisher?
I got 10 million reasons why I'd rather be Jimbo.
Yeah, that's not a hard question, man.
Well, the next one's getting harder. What about you, Jerry? Jimbo or Manny?
Yeah, I like the 10 million reasons.
All right. What about you, Bob?
Hey, if it doesn't work out for Jimbo at one school, he can always just kind of call it and find another school to take him. LSU might have an opening. Who knows?
They probably will at the rate they're going. But listen, I'm going with Manny because I want his hair, and $4.5 million is more than enough to get me by. And plus, if I was Jimbo, I couldn't find a hat big enough to fit my head. So
I already got Manny's hair. I want Jimbo's 10 million.
There you go. All right. Well, so
Pat, with 10 million, your hair can look like anything it needs to, buddy.
Hey, you could buy a real good wig.
That is FU money right there, brother.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. All right. Well, my next question: would you rather wake up in the morning as Dan Mullen or Urban Meyer?
No.
No.
Yeah, I'd rather be friggin' Urban Meyer. Dan Mullen has to deal with Gator fans. That's Meyer's out of that mess. So.
Oh, my next question is: how in the world, if you're a NFL or college head coach, are you letting that go on in public? I just don't. I mean,
hey, when that USC job opens up like that, and you don't like the NFL, you try to find ways to weasel your way out. So you start dancing in public.
Hey, I did hear that Heidi Fleiss has endorsed him for the USC job.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Let's go.
You know,
hey, there ain't Urban ain't going to be going after co-eds in California. I can tell you that.
Well,
there's a next level of real estate at that school.
I guarantee you there is.
You're probably right. Well, it's never like, listen, there's been more to talk about this football season than I ever could imagine. I mean, there really has. But yes, when I first saw those videos, I thought, well, they just found a guy that looks like Urban. This is totally made up. And then as the day has carried itself out, and then his apology. I mean, listen, his apology was weak as puppy piss. I mean, it was awful. And then the second video comes out. But anyway, so if I was waking up this morning, or tomorrow morning as one of those two guys, I wanted to be Dan Mullen because I don't have to deal with a lot of things at home. I just got to deal with all the BS at work. So I don't have to deal with any of the BS at home.
Have you seen his wife?
Have you seen his wife kissing all the players? I mean,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. You may not feel that way.
Well, I do today. I may change my mind. May change my mind next week. All right. Before we wrap up, I do want to go back to Florida State real quick, but I wanted to have a little bit of fun. And I respect all those coaches professionally, but anyway, they've had an interesting week, especially Herbs. But all right, Bob and Jerry, y'all are both at Mike Norvell's press conference. We've talked a little bit about Kenny and Adam, but what was y'all's takeaway from Mike today in his press conference with the media?
No, the only thing I was going to say that's interesting is up to this point, we've been trying to figure out how to motivate a team that isn't having any success. And the question that I've floated around in my mind is, the way we celebrated after that victory reminded me of the way we celebrated after the North Carolina victory last year. And that was against a good team. The weeks following that North Carolina victory weren't exactly positive. So I'm curious to see how this team responds this week to having had success. And hopefully it responds better than the team last year did.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, like I said, I don't think I think we've moved past the point of wondering whether this team's going to compete. I think now it's going to compete on the scoreboard. Now, that may not happen, but I don't think we're ever going to. Listen, anybody can come out and lay an egg, right? We see it happen every year in college football, but I don't think it's.
Well, I mean, we said in the very beginning of the season that we'd be a better football team, but you just may not see it on the scoreboard. And I think that's pretty much held true. I mean, we are better than last year. Every game we've lost within one score or less, or
just rapid ice.
Just one score. So they're better, and now it's just pulling it through and getting the win and doing, just that's again those small margins between winning and losing, and pulling that through. And that's the process of learning how to win. So that's where we are. Yep. And I guarantee you that this North Carolina game, I bet you will be a one-score game either way. So
I think it's going to be within the 16.5 points. I certainly think that.
Yeah.
But you're going to have some things go your way. But I do think I hope that we've seen this. We're past the point of whether this team's going to play hard or not, and I think we are. Fish, I want to ask you a question. Obviously, we talked to you about recruiting in the league. Something I brought up before the season started with NIL. was that we're going to start seeing kids opt out. We have. We saw a 5-star receiver opt out last week. He's not going to finish his season with his team. He's not healthy. He's not hurt. Then we saw FSU's biggest recruit get hurt on Friday. He attended the Georgia game on Saturday. What are you hearing, if anything, on Travis Hunter and his health, and whether he will play again this year or will shut it down until he rolls at Florida State, if that indeed stays the case?
No, it looks like it's a season-ending injury. I think from what I saw, it's like a fracture or something of an ankle or one of his lower legs. So I can't imagine there's any reason for him to play the rest of the year if he's hurt. I still think, he's pretty solid with Florida State. You always get nervous when kids take visits, especially unexpectedly, when this kid hasn't visited anywhere but Florida State. So you got to have that concern. But it seems like the staff has the grasp on his recruitment and have done a good job of keeping him in the fold. He's a big-time recruit. Other schools are going to want him. They're going to show him love, and you got to just cross your fingers until January rolls around, December, early signing day, and get him in the boat. But, this is what happens when you win. You're 1-4, and, other teams are going to recruit you. But Travis has been pretty much, I spoke to him before the season, and Travis basically said he grew up, he's from Florida. He's not a Georgia kid. He's from Palm Beach. His favorite team since he came out of the crib was Florida State. This is where he's always wanted to go. I just don't see that changing. He's very similar to like a Derwin James. I know Derwin never took a visit anywhere, but he committed, I think, as an 8th grader and stuck it through all the way to the end. And I expect this kid to do the same thing.
Yeah, well, I hope that happens, because he has definitely been the guy that's been most active on Twitter and social media trying to keep this class together and draw other big-time prospects to the program. So it'd be a great hold for Florida State if they could hold on to him. And hopefully if he rolls in January, he'll be healthy enough to go through spring practice, because that is one of the few benefits of a kid enrolling early, is being able to go through that. Any other updates on recruiting, Fish? Any other prospects standing out to you at this time? Or
No, right now, they just offered a kid, this McCoy kid out of Jacksonville, big old lineman. I think he's like 6'6", 6'5", 6'6" kid out of Jacksonville area. God, I wanted to say Coconut Creek, but it's not Coconut Creek, but he's up in Jacksonville. They're going to expand their offensive line board. The Pritchett kid did commit to Alabama. They need tackles. Everybody knows that. So I think you're going to see more of that. I really would still like to see them get on Leighton Nelson, who committed to UCF. I think he would be a great addition. You can't teach size and athleticism, and they need both on the outside. So overall, it's been quiet on the recruiting front. I think you'll see more as the season goes on, but right now it's quiet. They need to upgrade some positions. I think the wide receiver position, the Kevin Coleman kid, has been a lean for a while. They got to get him to finally pull the trigger. I think if they could get 1 or 2 kids to even commit in the next month or so, it will help them out, even if their record isn't the greatest. But they need some momentum, and that could come in the next couple months. So. And
then one quick final question on recruiting. Obviously, since the last time we've spoken about it, UCF has joined the Big 12, got Gus Malzahn as the head football coach, been at SEC program. How is that going to impact recruiting in the state of Florida for Florida State, Florida, and Miami?
I think you could kind of agree with me on this. I think UCF's them going to the Power Conference, the Power 5, with what they have, and you're in the center of the state of Florida and the resources they have and the location, and you walk around that campus and you see what you see as a young man, you got to like it. And I've always said, if this school ever joins the next level, I think they can win a national championship at that school. I really do. You're going to allow them to recruit the same players at a Florida State, and Miami you're going to recruit where they're located. I think it's honestly, they got the home run. And you look at a program like USF, who when Coach Levitt was there, you thought this would happen to them, and UCF jumped in front of them. It's great for that program. It's great for that fan base, and I think they're very fortunate and they're gonna, it's gonna pay dividends, big dividends for them. So.
Well, Bob, I'm going to wrap it up with you. I know you've been a very busy man. We've got baseball and basketball going on. Just give us a quick update. Basketball practice has started. The fall baseball season has started. I believe they have a game this weekend, some kind of practice game against a minor league team, if I'm not mistaken. But just kind of a quick update on the basketball and baseball team.
Yeah, the baseball team started fall ball and had an exhibition Monday afternoon against Ontario. It's a team up in Canada, and basketball started full team workouts. And I think it's an really exciting mix of freshmen, transfers, and some veterans. This is a team that Leonard Hamilton's really, really excited about. I think he's kind of got a feel for what they have, and might see some early growing pains as far as just how that chemistry gets put together. But that's why you have a kind of expanded non-conference schedule to figure it out. I think it's going to be exciting times in the next month as basketball season kind of ramps up toward tip off in right around November 10th, I believe. Yep.
Well, hey, a lot of things going on in Tallahassee. Football teams back on the winning side of things, and they got baseball and I think soccer's kicking butt as usual. I think I can't pronounce his last name, but he just got his 300th win.
Mark Krikorian.
Yeah, there you go.
And Leonard Hamilton picked up a basketball commitment, Deontay Green, who's considered the best power forward in North Carolina. So that's a pretty good get.
Well, the basketball team.
Let's just double his salary and let him recruit for football too. All right.
Yeah.
He might do pretty good. All right, guys. Well, listen, I appreciate everybody joining me on Monday night. I know everybody's busy, got a lot of things going on, but certainly it was fun to watch Florida State get back in the win column, and hopefully that momentum will carry over to Chapel Hill, and should be a fun game. Look forward to seeing what we learn about this team in the next 7 days. And of course, want to thank our Osceola subscribers for listening. And if you're not an Osceola subscriber, but listen to Seminole Sidelines podcast presented by Alumni Hall, please go to theosceola.com, go to the subscription tab. That will take you to the subscription page, and then you can enter FSU20, FSU20 in the discount code field to get a 20% discount off our annual rate of $74.95. And then if you would like to give us a try for a month, we do have a monthly fee of $6.95. But we'd love the opportunity for our Seminole Sidelines podcast listeners who are not Osceola subscribers to give us a chance at the Osceola. And we will be back next week. Guys, enjoyed it as always, and look forward to getting back together next week and seeing what we think about this team then.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. Go Noles!